The radical. Fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this June 27th. It's Thursday. Month of June is almost over. I think it's a week from 4th of July. We'll have to do a special 4th of July show next week. All right, I just noticed there's a typo in the title. I don't know how nobody let me know about this. Let me just quickly edit this. I don't have anything to say about ears, but I do have something to say about wars. So I need to change the E to the W and fix that. Ears. I mean, what did you guys think I was going to talk about there? I'm curious what news item the ears one prompted you guys to think about. I don't know. Top 10 ears of all time. I mean, mine are pretty good. At least my wife, the sculptress, says they are. Let's see. Let me also fix it. See if I can fix it on one more place, and then we'll get right down to it. So, you guys all excited, right? I mean, I'm sure you're all excited. You got your TVs ready. I need to figure out where I'm going to watch this. But tonight's a debate. Tonight is a debate, and I'm sure everybody is thrilled. This is going to be woohoo, kind of unbelievable, fun debates. We've got two not very intelligent evaders up on stage. It's just going to be interesting to see how this evolves. I mean, can Biden stay coherent for 90 minutes? I don't know. Have you noticed that they've got a mute thing for a mic? So when you're not speaking, your mic is muted, so nobody can hear you, and there's no live audience. You can't yell and get to the audience and get them. So that kind of, what's Trump going to do if he can't interrupt and he can't interfere? He's actually going to have to stand there and stew while not being able to speak. I don't know how he's capable of that. I have a sense he's going to interrupt to try to throw Biden off, even though we won't be able to hear actually what he's saying. It's going to be interesting if anybody of you is a lip reader. Lip readers are going to make a good deal on Twitter by tweeting to us what Trump is saying. That would be good. Anyway, I can't remember. I usually hate these debates because presidential debates, you learn nothing. They're meaningless. They are, at least probably since the 70s or whatever, they're meaningless. It's just one-upmanship. It's whoever is better in front of the camera, which doesn't mean anything in terms of one's ability as president. The questions are usually lame. It's going to be interesting. Will they be asked about the national debt? Will they answer questions about the national debt? Because they might be asked, but will they give answers? Will they be asked about Social Security, Medicare? Well, I don't know, because they're both going to give the same answer about Social Security and Medicare. Will they basically be asked anything about anything of real substance and interest? Will we hear anything new? Will we hear anything substantive? If they're asked about Israel, will Trump say anything more than he can negotiate a better deal? Will he actually say something substantive in support of Israel and in terms of solution? I mean, or will he focus, this will have never happened if I was president, BS? Stuff like that. Same thing with Ukraine. Will there be anything substantive? Trump will say, my fellow will get them together and negotiate. Negotiate for what? For Ukraine's surrender. Will there be anything of substance? will there be anything of substance not from the campaign trail, not that we haven't heard before? So it will be interesting. Big Worm says 1 to 2 minute delay in the broadcast of the debate. Just in case they say the F word, or just in case Biden wanders off stage and cannot be found, they'll have a minute or two to find him before we notice. What the hell, right? Last thing we want to do is give these people actual live opportunity. But how is Biden going to stay coherent and focused? And is he going to be on drugs? I mean, what? The Democrats must be petrified tonight. Petrified. I mean, maybe what some Democrats might be hoping for is that Biden completely messes up and screws up and completely comes off as senile, and that will give them the final excuse to dump him at the convention and appoint somebody else. I mean, that might be the Democrat strategy. I don't know, but they must be. If they hope that Biden is their nominee, they must be terrified. Terrified. The thing about Trump is, like, what could he say? Literally, what could Trump say that would change people's minds against him? He's going to be asked about his felony conviction. He's going to say the same stuff he's always said. He's going to be asked about the border. He'll Ukraine, Israel. He'll be asked about, I don't know, the economy. He'll say, but what can he say? Is there something we could imagine him saying that would just be so horrific that it would turn people off, that he didn't say when he was 4 years president, that he hasn't said in the last 4 years, and hasn't turned people off? So I think there's no downsides for Trump. And all the downside is there for Biden. Trump can basically just cruise. He can be himself. He can say whatever he wants to say. And even if they're not decided, I don't think the debate is going to make one iota of a difference in terms of how they decide. And again, Trump is the guy who could shoot people in the middle of Fifth Avenue. He can violate the law. He can be a part of an attempt to overturn an election. He can encourage people towards an insurgency, encourages vice president to violate the Constitution. He can do all of those things, and nobody cares. Nobody cares. So there's nothing he can say that would actually take him down, right? I think the American people are just, they've forgotten, they don't care, and they're just fed up with Joe Biden. And Trump is there, so they'll vote for him. I think there are very few people who are enthusiastic. It's probably 50% of the Republican, so 25% of the electorate is probably excited about vote for Trump. They're the ones rah-rah. But everybody else is just like, he's the alternative to Biden, so we'll vote for him because Biden is pathetic. Hard to tell what Biden can do to... Trump has no downside. Biden, I think, only has downside, which is really a weird circumstance. Why I think Trump has agreed to all these conditions around the debate, CNN, no live audience, biased moderators, he can't walk around. He's agreed to all these things because he knows he has no downside and that Biden only can make things worse. It's hard to imagine what he could do to make things better. Come across as youthful and energetic. Maybe. For 90 minutes? Hard to believe. All right, I think I'll be tweeting it. I'm not sure. I think I'll be tweeting it. And we'll see how it, I don't know why I'm going to inflict myself with this pain, but maybe because, it's my job. You guys pay me for this. But it is, oh, look at that. Lucinda just gifted 5 memberships, and we got Silvanos. Hard to believe Silvanos is not a member. Now he is. Boaz is a member now. He wasn't a member. All right, we got another Israeli. Ami. All right. Nice play, Lucinda. Lucinda, I don't know why I keep mispronouncing her name. Thank you, John, for the $20 sticker. Really, really appreciate it. Yesterday was great, but we have to be back on the track. Don't forget, ask questions. I answer them all. Answer as many questions you want, whatever amount of money you want. Lucinda just gifted another 5 memberships. Go for it, right? So thank you in advance. All right. So anything else about the debate? No, I can't think of anything else. It's just ridiculous. All right. Supreme Court came down with 3 decisions today. Still no immunity decision. My guess is they basically decided to wait until after the debate, so we'll get the immunity decision tomorrow. It is a big decision with regard to the Trump campaign, and I don't think they wanted to make it a topic of the debate, so we didn't get that one. We still don't have Chevron, which is the restrictions on the ability of regulatory agencies to make decisions. That's a huge one that has a lot of long-term consequences. We've also got some more decisions around social media and the status of Section 230. So those are going to be big. The law in Texas and Florida that restricts social media's ability to dump people and things like that. That's going to be huge. That's a huge First Amendment issue. Hopefully they rule both Texas and Florida unconstitutional. That would be the right verdict. But given that they punted on the other one, I just don't know. On the other social media one and sided with the Biden administration, maybe they'll side with state rights and give it to the states. I just don't know. But we've got some, again, I keep saying this every day, we've got some big decisions coming down the pike. It's going to be interesting to see how they rule. All right, so let's go over quickly the 3 decisions that did clear. The first one was actually leaked yesterday, was put up on the Supreme Court website by accident, or so they claim, accident. Lucinda just gifted 20 memberships. We have 20 new members as a consequence. Now I have to do a members-only show. I'll do one in early July soon, so you guys can gain a benefit from your membership. Hopefully some of you will renew, most of you will renew the membership that Lucinda has so generously provided you. Thank you, Lucinda. Really, really appreciate it. Hope you're having a good day today, she says. Yes, you're making it better. All right, so the first one is, as I said, was put up on the website yesterday. The Supreme Court cleared the way for Idaho hospitals to provide emergency abortions for now. So this is not a final decision. This is allowing for this to continue to be arbitrated in the court system. Lucinda's done another 10 gifts. And I talked about this a few weeks ago. This is a case where there is a conflict between Idaho's unbelievably restricted law that basically says it's only if the mother's life is imminently threatened can you perform an abortion, to the federal law that basically says that emergency rooms must treat patients who come in who have health-threatening conditions. So this is about the health of the mother, not just the life of the mother. Anyway, the ruling basically says that they're not making a definitive decision about this, but they're allowing this to continue in the court system. They're not placing they're basically not siding with Idaho in the meantime. So while this goes through the courts, Idaho hospitals still must provide emergency abortions when the health of the mother is at risk because of carrying the fetus. This was a 6-3 decision, so 3 conservatives voted on this, and it is interesting. This was this is Barrett Roberts and Kavanaugh, with the three liberal judges basically siding with the federal law, with Alito, who, of course, was the guy who authored the decision overturning Roe versus Wade, disagreeing and joined by Gorsuch and Thomas, suggested that the court should side with Idaho, that federal health care law conclusively shows that it does not require hospitals to perform abortions. Anyway, this is going to come back to the Supreme Court once it's decided in the lower courts, and it'll come back to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court will have an opportunity to make a decision. It is interesting that Barrett, who I thought was going to be one of the more religious members of the court and committed to some of these social issues, is turning out to be more of a swing vote on these kind of things. I think we expected that from Roberts, and even Kavanaugh was never kind of a religious nut, but certainly Barrett seemed to be. She's turning out to side more with center to left on these social issue kind of decisions. So good for the court. This is the right decision for now. It gives more liberty and more freedom to women and to doctors to make decisions about their health. It doesn't solve the bigger problem with basically these states that have banned abortions completely. But at least it gives a little bit more freedom, and I'm always for a little bit more freedom. I'm for much more freedom, but I'll take a little bit more freedom if I can't get a lot more freedom every time. So in this one, the Supreme Court is, I think, ruled rightly. Another Supreme Court decision, two Supreme Court decisions today, both on a 5-4 basis. These ones, I think, are probably have left significance, particularly this one. This has to do with the Purdue Pharma bankruptcy. It has to do with the Sackler family and the bankruptcy. The Sackler family owned Purdue Pharma. Purdue Pharma was found responsible for much of the many opioid deaths. Whether they are or not, I haven't done the research, but I'm suspicious of blaming Big Pharma or any pharma or these things for the opioid crisis. I'm sure they did some things that were immoral and wrong, but the opioid crisis, here we are, Purdue Pharma is gone. Big Pharma is not pushing opioids, and the opioid epidemic is not gone. There must be something else going on other than this. Anyway, put that aside. Purdue Pharma came to a settlement in its settlement as part of its bankruptcy, and the lawsuits filed against it over the opioid crisis. They had a $6 billion settlement, but part of that settlement was to release from liability the family. That is, the Sackler family released from liability for civil lawsuits. And I don't think those civil lawsuits would be legit. But anyway, Neil Gorsuch and the majority of the court, 5-4, decided that this was a wrong decision, that the law, bankruptcy law, does not provide for this kind of immunity. And they basically threw out the bankruptcy settlement. So basically what this means is it goes back to the bankruptcy court, and they have to come up with a different settlement, so the court has to make a decision. But it basically says that this is not the place to immunize the Sackler family from the lawsuit. Of course, the Purdue Pharma, is no longer owned by the Sackler family. It's gone through bankruptcy, restructuring, and owned by other people. So how exactly this is all disentangled, I do not know. I do not know if this is the right decision. I don't really have a strong view about this decision, but I'm skeptical about the liability here. But this basically sends it back, and it means that this lawsuit against the Sacklers and against Purdue Pharma is going to extend into the distant future. This is going to be years and years and years before this one is settled. Roberts, Kavanaugh, Sotomayor, and Kagan voted against this. So here you see an interesting split where 2 conservatives, 2 liberals voted against, 4 conservative, 1 liberal voted for. And it is interesting that these court cases are not, for the most part, being decided clearly along what are called ideological grounds. Some issues are, but many issues are not. And any issue that was not has to do with the Clean Air Act. This one, again, 5-4 decision. This one, again, authored by Neil Gorsuch, who basically... this one is kind of complicated. It has to do with pollution, downwind, federal law, state law, all the complications around that. And basically, I think the majority ruled that the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, failed to reasonably explain its federal implementation plan for controlling ozone pollution, and therefore this is being thrown down to the lower courts to figure out. This has to do with the Good Neighbor plan. Here, Barrett, one of the conservatives, was in dissent. So again, you had Gorsuch, Roberts, Thomas, Alito, and Kavanaugh. So you had 5 conservative justices, with Barrett joining the leftist justices. So complete mishmash. They don't align on almost any of these, but a lot of these are decided on technicalities. And it's a good sign they don't align. It means that they've got disagreements. But these issues, at least so far, are not about anything. I don't know what the principles involved are. And sadly, this courts and a lot of these lawsuits are not going to principles. Now, I like the fact that this latest ruling limits the power of the EPA. Again, this court is not friendly to the EPA, particularly because Gorsuch is unfriendly to the EPA. But of course, the big case here is going to be the case that hopefully overturns Chevron, which basically will restrict the EPA and other regulatory agencies and what they can do. I'm still waiting for that case. That's the one that matters. Anyway, hopefully we'll get to it soon. That'll be good. All right, some other news stories. We've done SCOTUS, we've done debate. We'll wait on that. Let's do, let's do a funny one. You want to do a funny one? Let's do a funny one. I don't know if you guys have seen this video, but this video is hysterical. I don't have much to say about the video other than watch Tucker. Watch his face, his gestures, what he says. And I don't know. I'm curious about what you guys think. Is he sane? Is this guy gone nuts? Or is he still with us? Put aside even the content of what he says. Just watch this video. You can watch it without sound. I don't know if you've seen this, but this is all over Twitter, all over social media, different versions of this. But this 45-second clip is really funny. And anytime I can make fun of Tucker, I'm all for it. And anytime Tucker can make fun of himself, I'm all for it. So let me play this for you. Oops, clicking the wrong place.
You've preempted my question on Putin.
Putin! Putin!
Which I think you did strategically because you knew it's what we'd ask.
Putin! He's so bad!
And I also appreciate that.
Did he make you take the COVID shot?
Take the what?
The COVID shot?
Did Putin make you take the COVID shot? There's a question. Did you watch that? That was pretty funny. You know, the arms, the facial expressions, the whole thing. That was pretty amazingly funny. But did Putin make you take the COVID shot? That is his winning argument. Let me think. If I were living in Russia, he certainly would have. The COVID vaccine mandates in Russia were really bad. Did Putin lock you down? If you were in Russia, lockdowns in Russia were worse than they were in the West. What's Tucker's point? I guess Putin is not the immediate enemy because he isn't the one that literally forced a shot into your arm. But if he had been in charge, you would have had as you did in Russia, a COVID mandate. Let's watch the rest of this. It's not quite as funny as those first, 19 seconds, but it's just look at this idiot's facial expressions. I mean, the guy's descended into becoming, a joke. Now, a very successful, very popular, hugely followed joke, but it's still a joke.
No, he didn't.
He didn't? He didn't push
Sorry.
you. Look at that. You see that?
The COVID shot saved probably tens of millions.
Oh,
of dollars.
yeah,
And
definitely.
probably
Safe and effective. This is why everyone loves the media.
Probably 100 times more lives than Putin has killed in
It's
Ukraine.
like a time capsule. It's like you're like the last Japanese soldier on Okinawa. You think the war's still going. Oh, it's hilarious.
You've
Oh, my God. Tucker Carlson. Remember when he wore the bow tie? And when he wore the bow tie and he was, and he sounded a little libertarian and he came across as smart. Actually came across as smart. Those days are long gone. God, this guy comes across as a complete blabbering idiot. And his facial expressions make him look like a complete idiot. So anyway, and that stupid laugh, that was something special. Yes, that was something special. Anyway, moving on from Tucker Carlson, here's some stuff. Again, some of you might want to close your ears because I'm not sure you're ready for this. But it's, this will be debate fodder, I think, tonight. Border crossings, illegal border crossings have dropped by more than 40% during the 3 weeks, 3 weeks since Joe Biden signed the executive order limiting entry. So it seems like, the real question is if this was a big issue, why didn't he do this originally? It seems like such a political failure on the part of Biden not to have signed the asylum limitations months earlier and taken this issue off the table for Trump. But it might be too late now, even though results are there. That is the result in a sense that crossings are down dramatically. Even though crossings are down dramatically, Biden is probably not going to benefit. It's probably too late. He's associated now with this crisis at the border, and massive numbers are coming in, and all of this. We will see. We will see. So right now, the asylum process is being suspended because more people on average are coming in than the 1,500 a day mark that needs to be achieved in order to resume asylum processing. So people are being sent back, I guess. But too late. It also looks like the Mexican government is enforcing things better on its side of the border. But it's just stunning how incompetent Democrats are. This should have been the main thing that they did in the election year. The main thing that they did is focus on shutting down the southern border, at least for the 9 months before the election or something like that, the 10 months before the election. And they blew it. They really, really blew it. They had a real chance. And they didn't do it. Anyway, and there's no politics here because it's not like if they shut down the border, all these Democrats would have voted for Trump. There's no downside. But they don't get politics. Trump is brilliant at this. This is the one thing he's brilliant at. He's brilliant at these trial balloons that he really latches onto the ones that are successful, and he repeats them over and over again. He's brilliant at knowing the sentiment of the country and adjusting his positions to match the sentiment, and by doing so, pick up votes. And he'll say and do whatever is necessary to pick up the votes. And policy be damned. The only thing that matters is picking up votes, and Biden is just not good at that. He's just not good at that. It just shows how much the country was sick and tired of Trump, that it voted Biden in, as incompetent as he is on the campaign trail. They just were so sick of Trump that in 2020, it wasn't a vote for Biden. And this is the big mistake Biden has made. Biden thought he was incredibly popular. Biden thought he won the 2020 election. And this is the strategic mistake the Democratic Party made. And it's just not true that Biden won the 2020 election. Trump lost the 2020 election. The vote was against Trump, not for Biden. And now people are sick and tired of Biden. They would have liked maybe a middle-of-the-road younger Democrat, but somebody new and fresh. But Biden thought he's the only one who can defeat Trump because he did it, but he can't defeat him again because people didn't vote for Biden. They voted against Trump. Justifiably. I mean, anything but Trump. But now, a second time Biden, that is a hard pill to swallow for pretty much everybody. Pretty much everybody. All right, let's see. What do we have? Here's a fun one. There's Congressman Matt Rosendahl, who is a Republican, state of Missouri, I think. Rosendahl has signs all over the front of his office, right? All over. Like, just as you enter the door, he has these big posters all over the walls there saying, IVF destroys more life than Planned Parenthood. I mean, Republicans want to die on that hill? I thought they figured this out. What state was it? Alabama? Where they gave an exception for IVF. And he doubled down. IVF destroys more life than Planned Parenthood annually. They want this. They want to go after IVF. They want to go after IVF. Matt Rosendahl, Congressman. Where's he from? Let's just check. Congressman from Montana. Sorry, Montana. God, where did these people come from? How did they get elected? It really is pretty amazing. IVF. They want to stop you from using IVF. All right, let's do update on the war. The wars both in Israel and Ukraine are just not making the headlines. I scan the news. I scan a bunch of different sources on the news, and you just don't see much about what's going on either in Israel and Ukraine. And so I just want to remind you, of, just a simple reality that is going on. That is, the war continues. Wars in both places continues. Kids are dying. The war in Israel, Hezbollah just about 30 minutes ago, maybe 40 minutes ago, launched a whole array, I think was it 20, 30 missiles towards the Israeli northern city of Tzfat. A lot of those missiles were knocked down by the Iron Dome, but not all of them. So it's not clear what the damage was. But the missiles are still being launched and still being, and it's still happening, still going on. In Gaza, fighting continues. In all parts of Gaza, both in the north, around the city of Gaza, and in the south, in Rafah, as Israel tries to take complete control. Israel's head of the Air Force today announced that he expects fighting in Gaza to main significant fighting in Gaza to be over with soon, and for Israel to shift its focus to Lebanon. He also reinforced the idea that Israel is in excellent shape to take on the Hezbollah in Lebanon, and that the Air Force is ready to take them on. So the war over there continues, and again, soldiers are fighting, soldiers are dying. Territorially, there's not a lot of shifts, although Israel is slowly taking over all of the territory of Rafah, in the south. But of course, it evacuates other areas, and Hamas reestablishes itself there. So Israel keeps going back, killing more, retreating, going back, killing more, retreating, and this is going to go on, and it could go on, and it probably will go on for months and months and months, looking into the future. It is pretty sad. In the meantime, in Ukraine, I mean, the war is just a grinding war, and the Russians are bombing the cities, both in the north and in the east of Ukraine. And they continue to try to advance. They've advanced very little, if any, over the last few weeks. It is a grinding war. It is a war with unbelievably large numbers of casualties, particularly on the Russian side. The Russians are completely, willing to sacrifice as many kids as necessary in order to buy themselves inches. Putin cannot afford to be perceived as retreating in any way or stalemated, although the war is at a stalemate. So it is a shocking war in terms of how Russia, just the sheer magnitude of the casualties on the Russian side and the willingness of Russia to do this. They did it in World War II, but you just wouldn't expect it in the 21st century. And you wouldn't expect the Russian people to tolerate it. You really wouldn't expect the Russian people to tolerate. This does show the extent to which Ayn Rand was right, that the Russian people have not changed, that their primitive, mystical barbarism is still alive and well, and they continue to just shrug off the deaths of tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of kids. For what? For what? Nothing. Nothing. Nothing of value to anybody in Russia. Anyway, wars continue. What did I want to say one more thing about the war. I mean, United States is probably, United States, Israel, and Ukraine are probably in discussions about the transfer of some Patriot surface-to-air missiles to Ukraine. Basically, these surface-to-air missiles, Israel believes it doesn't need, given that it has the Arrow systems that are more advanced, and it has the David Sling systems that are Israeli built, so it doesn't need the Patriot systems. So it is going to move Patriot systems that it has already in Israel to Ukraine. That is, those are the negotiations that are happening right now. The Israeli systems, I think the Israeli defense industry is building them as fast as they can to satisfy domestic demand. But also, one of the interesting things is, since the attack on the Iranian attack on Israel, where basically they knocked down almost everything from the sky, 95% or 99% of all of them, there's been a huge backlog of orders for Israeli air defense systems, which Israel cannot yet supply, because its first priority is, of course, supplying its own troops. So we will see. We will see. So whether they send the Patriot system to Ukraine or not will depend on whether they believe they need them for the coming war. I mean, it's a mistake to say the coming war. Whether they need them for the escalation of the war with Hezbollah or not, or whether they can spare them because they've got their own domestic capabilities. God, there was one other thing I wanted to say, and it slipped my mind. And if it slipped my mind, it slipped my mind. It doesn't exist. We will just move on. If I remember, I'll come back to it. All right, UK election. Reading some numbers about polls in the UK. Oh my God. And basically, it looks like Labour is going to crush the Conservatives. I mean, crush them. Labour looks like it's going to achieve an overwhelming majority in the House of Parliament. This will be the worst defeat that the Conservatives have had in over 100 years. The last time the Conservatives lost this many seats, it was not to Labour, it was to the Liberal Party. The Liberal Party will still probably be the third largest party now, but close, a few seats flipping, and the Liberal Party might be the second largest. This will, and it looks like the Reform Party gets maybe one seat, which is Farage's seat. So they will have no real impact, except by guaranteeing the Conservatives lose more seats. So this is this is devastating. It's on a scale that I wonder I wonder why these elections were called now. I wonder if delaying couldn't have bought more time and maybe a little bit better result for the Conservatives. I just don't know. But they're going to be wiped out. Wiped out. As I said, Kemi might be the opposition leader, so that's one good thing coming out of it. She is expected to win her seat, so she will be a member of parliament. And we will see her, if she's the opposition leader, go after Keir Starmer. And she's sharp and fast and quick. But it's really, really, God, I mean, the Brits, do they really know what they're buying into? Do they really know? Yeah. Reform will have one seat in Labour will have for 400. The Conservatives under 100. I mean, it's a bloodbath. Completely wiping out. I mean, imagine if an election, one of the political parties in the United States got of the 400 and something, 450 seats in the House of Representatives, imagine if one party got 350, 375. Maybe it could happen. All right. It's and these are 5 years, and since they have such a majority, it's almost inconceivable that they would be forced out. How would you force them out? There's no way to force them out. So they'll be stuck. This is what happens when the right is so incompetent, so pathetic, so mindless, so stupid, so moronic, that they hand power over to the left. This is what happened in the United States in 2020, with Trump losing the Senate and the White House. And who knows what's in for the Republican Party with another 4 years of Trump. All right, that's the UK. I have a few. Oh, yeah. So the story that keeps coming out, they keep saying sea levels are rising. All these islands are going to disappear. The atolls, like the atolls in the Pacific and the Indian Ocean, and they're all going to just go away because the oceans are rising, and these atolls are just a little bit above sea levels, and if sea level rise, like the Maldives, will just disappear. They'll go, right? And the Maldives is fine, and they, still have an airport, and they still have all these islands, and they're still doing great. And other than the fact that as an Israeli, if you have an Israeli passport, they won't let you in. Other than that, the Maldives are doing okay. And so other atolls in the Pacific Ocean, so everywhere. And this is like puzzling because the scientists are telling us on the one hand that sea levels not only are rising, but have risen already. And that according to their calculations, these atolls should not exist. They shouldn't be there. They should have disappeared. And so scientists have gone to the Maldives to try to figure this out. What is actually going on? And at least their explanation, go figure if this is true or not. But I did find it interesting that their explanation is, it turns out these things are more complicated than you would think. It turns out that as sea levels rise, the waves continue and increase the what do you how would you term this, the deposits of new soil onto the shore. So in some areas, what you're seeing as sea levels rises, an expansion of the land, because they're actually doing more of this dumping of soil. In other places, the land is indeed disappearing because sea levels are rising and the waves are not in the right direction and the soil is not adding up. So they now have a convenient explanation for this. It's all about this complexity of the interaction between the rising seas and the waves and the dumping of soil and all of this. And there's a whole big article in the New York Times because, I mean, this is one of the things that people like Alex and others keep saying about climate change is they can't predict. They keep telling us the sea levels are rising, but look what's happening. So they needed an explanation. So they sent a crew out of scientists to try to explore this and to explain this, and this is their explanation. Again, I don't have any reason to believe one way or the other whether they are, but they have looked at the aerial photographs, satellite imagery, and they have you can get pretty cool pictures on the what do you call it, New York Times website of seeing how these things, how the land has changed and shifted and grown and shrunk in other places and moved around. I think all this does is really tell us what I don't think should be that surprising, and that is that these things are complicated. They're really, really complex. And when some scientist, a politician, or hack tells us, oh yeah, temperatures go up, therefore X happens, and Y happens, and this happens, and that happens, and this goes there, and that goes there. It doesn't work like that. There's so many mechanisms. Nature has so many offsetting mechanisms. There's so much going on. There's so many countervailing things going on at any point in time. That they can't make predictions about what things are going to be like in 20 years, 10 years, 20 years, never mind 100 years. And yet, they want us to stop fossil fuels exactly because of projections of what will happen 50 to 100 years. And yet they can't, and they admit they can't, and they admit that it's complicated or complex, and that they don't have a handle on it, and their models can't actually predict this stuff because it's hard, it's complicated. It's fascinating to see them twist themselves into pretzels to try to explain these things and to try to justify their projections when clearly their projections are not good. Not good. And as a consequence of their projections not being good, in spite of their projections not being good, they want to continue to basically cripple us, cripple our lives, stop us. And again, it's more and more and more of, exposes what they're really about, and that is ending Western civilization, ending capitalism, ending industrialization, ending progress, ending success. Talk about ending civilization. It turns out that the number of Islamic jihadists, Islamists, people we should be worried about, people who are committed to destroying the West, destroying civilization, killing Americans, coming after us, the number of Islamic jihadists in Africa has increased tenfold, according to U.S. Africa Command. Tenfold over the last, decade and a half. So over the last 15 years. In countries, in countries all over kind of the southern Sahara and into sub-Saharan Africa. There are thousands and thousands of jihadis now training there, occupying territory, establishing what they consider an Islamic state. I mean, one of the only positives is that One of the positives is that they hate each other. So Al-Qaeda and ISIS don't work together, and they often fight each other, which is good. But really, the world has no answer to this. And the United States is not going to invade Africa. We have troops in Africa, too many in my view, and not with these missions that are pinpricks rather than dealing with this in a substantive manner. But today, 40% of the world's Islamic jihadists, 40% of those committed to violence in the name of jihad, committed to that, and are training and are militarily capable, 40% of them are in Africa, no longer not in the Middle East, not in Far East Asia, but in Africa. So this is very close to Europe, and it's a vast territory. The United States tries to monitor it, but it's losing that war. Russia's taking over these areas, and it's not clear what Russia's incentives are here. If you remember, the United States has had to vacate 1,000 of its troops, all of its troops, from the West African nation of Niger, not Nigeria, Niger. And it had a whole drone airbase there and 1,000 troops that they had built. We spent $100 million in Niger, and the current regime in Niger has kicked us out. So more illustration that the United States has no conception of a foreign policy and how to deal with the Islamic threat in any kind of substantive way. One more piece of bad news and then some good news. The wonderful people in Brussels at the European Union are accusing Microsoft, why not, of anti-competitive behavior because Microsoft is bundling its Teams app with its Office suite. Let me repeat that. It's anti-competitive behavior because Microsoft is bundling its Teams app with its Office suite. Now, as somebody who uses Office and who uses Teams, it's unbelievably convenient to have Office and Teams bundled. Indeed, isn't the Office suite a bundling? I mean, Word and Excel and what is it? The PowerPoint presentation software and a bunch of and I think the email software all bundled together. That's the whole point of a suite. If bundling is wrong, of course, this is the original antitrust lawsuit against Microsoft, is that they bundled with their operating system a Internet Explorer, the Internet browser. Now, I generally dislike Microsoft products, but Teams is actually pretty good. I hate other parts of it. I hate OneDrive. I hate a bunch of other stuff. I wish it was better bundled. I wish it was better integrated. But the EU is claiming, as antitrust agencies will always claim, as irrational and just nuts this is, that by bundling it, it gives Microsoft an unfair advantage over rivals like Slack and Zoom, who don't have Word and Outlook and all these other things. So I don't know what is Microsoft supposed to do? It's supposed to not offer Teams? It's supposed to not bundle it? So not integrate it with Word, so you won't be able to use Word within Teams? It's supposed to cripple my ability to use it? It's supposed to make my life more difficult? Huh. Go figure. Again, this has a precedent of Internet Explorer being bundled with Microsoft operating system. So we are in for another stupid. But Brussels, as bad as antitrust is in the United States, it seems like Europe is just one level, like 5 levels worse. It's like the U.S. is really, 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 really bad. It was bad under Trump. It's even worse under Biden, and it's worse under the European Union. And I wonder if any of these right-wing political parties, have any intention of undoing this insanity on the antitrust front. Now, that would almost make it worth voting for a right-wing political party, but probably not. I wonder if Trump will be asked about Lena Khan. I would ask him. I'd ask that question if I were doing the interviewing. What's your opinion about antitrust enforcement under the Biden administration? I think it'll catch him off guard, and I don't know what he'll say. All right, a last piece of good news coming out from SpaceX. SpaceX is going to ship, starting next week, a Starlink Mini. This is a lower cost, laptop-sized version of the original dish that will allow anybody in the third world at a very attractive price to be able to connect to the internet through Starlink. It has the potential to get connected the 3 billion people on the planet who still don't have internet access, and provide the 1.5 billion who have pretty lousy access, give them good access. A Starlink terminal is going to cost less than a month's rent in Nairobi. You can imagine buying a terminal and setting it up for a building or for a group of people. It provides a connection that's 5 times faster than the Nairobi alternative. And, here we go. This is an amazing way to change the world. An amazing way to have an immediate, fast, almost instantaneous impact on the developing world, on the third world, let's call it, and impact their quality of life and standard of living. I mean, this article that was looking at compares this to China's efforts to change the third world and have an impact on the third world. Those cost them $1.3 trillion as part of the Belt and Road Initiative. Here's Elon Musk in a profit-seeking venture going to have more impact on the third world than China at a cost of basically zero, because he's going to make a profit on it. Pretty cool. This is the power of capitalism. I wish America would, the people who claim to be pro-capitalist would recognize how just frigging amazing it is. Absolutely amazing. So go Elon Musk, in the love-hate thing with Musk. This is a love, definitely a love. Thumbs up. All right, that is the news for June 27th, 2024. Nothing major. The Supreme Court decisions. Tomorrow will be interesting because I'll give you commentary on the debate. So tomorrow will be fun, right? Tomorrow will be fun because we'll talk about the debate. And we can talk about the new Supreme Court decisions, which I think tomorrow are going to be the more juicy, meaningful ones. And we'll see what else is happening in the world. It's been kind of slow in the news cycle, with exception of Supreme Court cases recently. Being kind of slow. All right, we are going to talk in a few minutes. We're going to talk about an essay, a phenomena described in an essay that was written by Nathaniel Branden in The Virtue of Selfishness, Ayn Rand's The Virtue of Selfishness, called Divine Right of Stagnation. So we'll talk about that. I think it is chapter 16 in The Virtue of Selfishness. If you want to get your book out, get your book out. And we'll talk about that because I think it is a super important essay, super important idea, one that we continue to fight because the divine right of stagnation is inflicting both left and right on major scale. In the meantime, let me make a pitch. We're now an hour into the show. We're like $41 short of achieving our 1 hour target. So if somebody wants to do a $41 super chat or sticker or something like that, maybe $50 just to round it off and get us going on the second hour, that would be phenomenal because we do need to keep it up. Yesterday was a good day, but but we have to have a good day every day. I mean, that's the reality. We need some new whales to join. Michael has always been a whale, continues to be a whale, but we also got Lucinda yesterday helping out a lot to get us to where we did. There we go. Lucinda just did the $50 to get us there. But any of you out there who are There's Glenn. There's another, whale that just did $50. So now we're nicely into the second hour. The second 250, the 250 in the next hour. So that's good, Glenn. You got us in there. You got us started for the second hour. So now we have the 200 or the anyway. Now we've got the 200 to go in the second hour to get to where we need to get. So thank you, Lucinda. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you, Glenn. Really, really, really appreciate it. And only $426 to go for the 3-hour shot. But any whales out there would be good. Andrew is a good-sized trout. I'll take trouts as well. Andrew's trouts are like at the $20 level. The whales are at the $100+ level. So we need more whales on the show to keep it going day in, day out, and to reach our targets. And Mary Bands, whales, are you calling me fat? Only if you contributed over $100. But at $2, you are super thin, Mary Bands. She deserves that, right? Thank you, Mary Bands. I'll take $2. I take $2 from anybody. You can do a. There's Lucinda with another 50. I hope Lucinda is indeed a whale. I've never met us. I don't know, but financially, I mean, because she's putting a lot of money on the Yaron Brook show, and to keep this up, it's expensive. So, but thank you. All right, let's see. Yes, want to remind you of the Einman Institute's 4th of July session next week. There's Glenn reaching whale status by doing another 50. So he's at 100. That puts you at whale status. We got 2 whales today. Michael's always a whale. He's a perennial whale because he does so much all the time. But we've got the July 2nd Einman Institute special on the 4th of July, discussion of Atlas Shrugged, its relationship to the founding documents of America. I encourage you to sign up for that and listen and watch. It'll be Anka Gate and Nikos, whose family name I cannot pronounce. So he's one of those, like the soccer stars who just go by one name. I mean, he's like Pelé or Messi. You just there's one name. You don't need to say a second name, and that is Nikos. So that should be a great show. You can sign up for it on aynrand.org/start here. aynrand.org/start here. And of course, Alex Epstein. Alex Epstein's Substack, alexepstein.substack.com, where you can also get the premium product, Alex AI, and you can get the talking points, best talking points out there in politics broadly. He covers everything. Any new issue that comes out, you get talking points on how to deal with it, how to argue it, how to write a letter, use it to write a letter to your congressman or senator, or whatever, to have a real impact in the world. Alex certainly is having a big impact in the world. Support him by joining the Substack. All right, let's go to our super chat. Let's go to super chat, and then I'm going to move this so I'm not looking like sideways. Let's see if this will work. Not great. Not great. Nah, I'm going to put it back. Too small. All right. Jack. Well, yeah, let's do Jack. He's been patient, waiting with this. Jack Blackford. Thank you, Jack. Really appreciate the support. He says, hello, fellow objectivists. Cleaning windows in Colorado. Thanks for helping distract me. Thank you, Ron. It always worries me when he does this, right? Jack is cleaning windows, and he's listening to Yaron Brook show, and I can see him dangling from the 50th floor of some high-rise in downtown Colorado, and he's listening to Yaron Brook show, and, I make him gasp or laugh too much or get him distracted and unfocused, and he falls. And it's on me, and it just scares me, Jack. I worry about you. So please take care of yourself and stay safe. I've got fear of heights, and anybody cleaning windows. I don't care if it's even 3 stories. Scares the bejesus out of me. So I'm impressed. I'm impressed by anybody who can do that. Paul, $50. Thank you, Paul. Really appreciate it. Paul says, congrats on Monument School. Super excited. Yes, I am excited too. What do you think of Farad Zakaria? Saw him on Spectator TV. He seems to have broad knowledge of history and classical liberalism, but not sure how much of it he actually values. I mean, this is the thing with Zakaria. He's a very much a mixed bag. He's certainly left of center. He has a broad knowledge. He knows a lot. He often comes to the wrong conclusions. He's definitely mainstream when it comes to his moral evaluation, when it comes to war and how to fight wars, and his perspective on what it's going to take to win, whether it's in the Middle East right now or whether more broadly against the jihadist movement. So he is, I think, also in economics. You would have to call him he's left of center. He's not radical left. He's not a socialist, but he's left of center. He's anti-woke. He's one of those leftists who are anti-woke and is anti-far left. He comes across as very cultured. He's got a great accent. You know, he's one of the, I guess, good guys with a very small G in the world in which we live. In a better world, he would be one of the enemy. But the enemy right now is so bad that kind of left of center, right of center is okay because at least they're kind of sane. You can talk to them. The far left and far right that dominate the 2 political parties, the populist right, far right, can't talk to them. Can't talk to them. So, yeah, wouldn't call him classical liberalism. I mean, that's part of the problem. Part of the problem is that liberalism has such a bad name now that what do you call these people? They're not classical liberal in the sense of capitalists. They're not supportive of capitalism in any kind of meaningful sense. So they're better than conventional liberals, but they're not capitalists, and they're not, certainly in foreign policy, not radicals. So are they classical liberal? What are they? Hard to give them a clear name, clear identity. I'd say he's a liberal. He's an old-style liberal, not a classical liberal, an old-style liberal. There's a better terminology. But you got to be careful. Like liberal in Canada is Justin Trudeau, wacky, woke, far left. And that's the Liberal Party. Liberal in the UK is vehemently anti-Israel, pro-Hamas. That's pretty ugly and far left. So liberal is just such a mix. It's all over the place. You can be a classical liberal, you can be a modern liberal, you can be a okay liberal, you can be a horrible liberal, you can be a far left liberal, you can be conventional. And Ayn Rand said this in the 1970s. Conventional political labels have become meaningless. They were meaningless already in the 1970s. There was no definition for conservative and no definition for liberal, Ayn Rand said. They become 10 times more meaningless, if that is possible. If you can take a zero and make it even more zero today than they were back then. So it just, I don't know what you call him. He's got some good views. He's got some bad views. On the scale of people to listen to, he's one of the better people to listen to. But that's more of an indication how bad most people are. All right. Equal to Reality just did another gift membership. Captain Sky just became a member. Thank you, Captain Sky. As I said, Glenn and Lucinda each gave $50 and then another $50 each. That is pretty amazing, guys. Thank you. And yeah, we're caught up. But lots of membership gifted today, which is great. Gets more and more of you hopefully engaged. So, how about this? We can make this a topic for stickers, for like Super Chat stickers. Topic for a members-only show. So put into a sticker just your suggestion for topic on for a members-only show. The last members-only show we did female sculpture. particularly nude sculpture. We've done it on others. We've done it on sculpture. We've done it on movies. We've done it on westerns, and we've also done stuff on politics. I gave a State of the Union address once on the members only show. So, just topic that you would like to see on a members only show. The nice thing about members only so far, because some people have not gotten gifted, luckily, is that it's pretty more laid back and relaxed. There's less hecklers and less stupidity in the chat. So the next members only show will be either. I don't think it'll be next Saturday. That's a long weekend for you guys, 4th of July. I think it'll be the Sunday after next. So the 7th is next Sunday, so it'll be 14th. Next, I'll just announce it out. Next members only show is on the 14th. 14th of July will be the next member show. Yeah, join us, right? And I need topics, but it would be a. Yeah, you see, I mean, you guys are not good. I need your help. I really need topics. It's hard for me. I have to do a topic every single day for all these shows, a topic for my show in Hebrew once every 2 weeks, and then a topic, just tons of shows. How to start at a biotech company. There you go. That's a good topic. Not one I have anything to say, but Mary Benz put her $2 on it, and she gave us a topic. So you guys need to pitch in. Maybe with something you think or imagine, I'd actually have something to say about. All right, more super chat. Daniel, how would you deal with "that's the way we have always done it" mentality in management? If they won't change for the better, should you quit? I mean, was this part of the divine right of stagnation? Because that is the divine right of stagnation. That is exactly that mentality. We do it because we've always done it. That's called conservatism. How would I deal with it? Ultimately, yes, you'd have to quit, right? You can't deal with people like that. It's a death mentality. It's a death-seeking mentality. Or put it more accurately, it's an anti-life mentality. Life is about movement, change, progress, innovation. I'm going to say this all again in a few minutes when we talk about the essay. That's what life requires. That's what life is about. That's what life necessitates. And when you're in business and somebody comes up with something like that, it's just, it can, and you're oriented on you're productive. So by being productive, you're oriented towards doing things better, more productive, increasing productivity. Then that is intolerable. And I'd say, yes, start looking for another job if that is really the attitude that you're getting. Raphael, hi, Yaron. How do we embrace a new radical philosophy like objectivism without feeling like we're setting ourselves against the world? You are setting yourself against the world. In significant ways, you are. So it's why I think embracing objectivism, the rate of embracing objectivism is low. It's why a lot of people don't embrace objectivism, in spite of the fact that I think they come to believe it may be true. They don't embrace it because they don't have the courage to take on the world. But you are taking on the world. You're taking on history. You're taking on 2,000, 3,000 years of philosophy. You're taking on geopolitics. You're taking on everything. You're basically saying, I disagree with everything pretty much that's going on in the world. And that's the reality. That is exactly what it means to embrace objectivism. It's to put yourself up against the world, and you've got to figure out how to deal with that. That is, the beauty of that is, I am now focused on myself, on my happiness, I don't actually give a damn what the rest of the world thinks. And if I can't control it, I don't, I'm not going to get too upset about what the rest of the world does. I'm too selfish, too egoistic, too focused on my own life, my own happiness, my own prosperity. That's where I'm going to maintain my focus. And I'm going to live my life and emphasize the things I can control and build the most beautiful, amazing, stunning life I can. And to hell with the rest of the world. I mean, you've got to take an attitude, something like that. Now, it's not literally to hell with the rest of the world. It's just more attitude of that. You can't put on your shoulders now, oh my God, I have to change the world. That would be absurd. That would be a massive sacrifice. You can't put on my shoulder, the world hates me, they're all against me, I can't do anything. You can't do that either. You've got to find a way to achieve your values within the world as it is. And to change it to the extent that you can, where you can. It's the only way. Jonathan, you missed some context regarding the Ten Commandments. In Exodus 19, the Israelites agree to be commanded before they're given. It doesn't make any difference. You agreeing to be a slave doesn't make slavery okay. It makes you immoral and not very smart. So the fact that the Israelites agree to be commanded just makes them immoral and pretty, immoral, bad, and stupid, unthinking. So, don't agree to be a slave. So, God, what was the option they were given? Accept the commandments or what? Accept the wrath of God. Maybe that wasn't said explicitly, but it certainly was demonstrated over and over again in the Old Testament. And it's a theme that goes through the Old Testament. Accept, submit, surrender, obey, or get destroyed. That's the Old Testament. So it's zero difference. That context doesn't change anything one iota of my analysis. Paul says, Peter Zane recently said Trump loses by landslide. And don't look at polls until after conventions for the same reason mentioned, not voting for Biden, but against Trump. I hope he's right. As I've often said, the best outcome of the next election is Trump losing in a landslide. Right? But I don't think he is. I wish Peter Zane was right, but I don't think it is. I don't think he's going to lose in a landslide. Because just losing doesn't save us. We get Biden, and we get a completely corrupt, impotent, pathetic, ridiculous Republican Party. The only way the Republican Party changes for the better is Trump losing in a landslide. Not happening, Peter Zane. But I hope, I wish you luck because that's the outcome I want. Oh, God. What are your thoughts on David Boaz? David Boaz passed away. He was basically the number 2 at Cato Institute for many, many years. You could argue he held that organization together. He held it together through a number of different crises over its history. I think to a large extent he was the guiding spirit at Cato to a large extent, in a sense of somebody who was there from the beginning and who Cato basically reflected, I think, many of his ideas, or at least his vision of how an institute like Cato, Libertarian Institute, could and should be run. I think, sadly, David was also like what I call a big tenter. It was very, very influential in establishing the libertarian movement as a big tent movement, as a movement that included and embraced the anarchists. And I think that is a massive error on the part of Cato. It's a massive error on the part of the libertarians more broadly. The better libertarians is to embrace the nutcases, is to view them as all being part of the same movement, is not to spend more time and effort and energy on differentiating them clearly from the crazy anarchists. So even though many people at Cato are not anarchists, David Boaz was essential to this idea of a big tent that included the anarchists, which I think has held back the libertarian movement and libertarian ideas from being more successful and more influential. I also think, sadly, that David was, because he passed away, was very tolerant of some of the really bad people at Cato, the foreign policy people at Cato, who were very anti-American post 9/11, and I think, and who have been very, very, very anti-Israel in the current crisis. I think Cato's foreign policy has been abysmal, pathetic, terrible. And David supported that, and as the guy really responsible for content, made it possible, encouraged it, whatever support, however you support, you view support in that. So I think that is sad. I think that is unfortunate. Anyway, I think for Cato it is a real blow. He was, and for the better libertarians out there, a blow again. But I also think a lot. He did the damage he did by the big tent perspective. Michael, did you see Vivek quoting Milei the other night? I think if Milei becomes radically successful, it can be Trump versus Milei in terms of the direction of the party. Yeah, I mean, Vivek is like, I don't know, 30% of the time really good. I mean, he says he likes Mises, and I mean, he sounds free market, and then he says stuff that's completely nuts. So Vivek is this mixed bag. Milei has to be successful, but if Milei is successful, then Milei can and maybe will have an impact on the future of the, call it the right, and could have a very, very, very positive impact on the future, particularly in Latin America. I think people in Brazil, in Chile, and in other parts of Latin America are looking very, very carefully at what's happening in Argentina. And to the extent that he is successful, there is a good chance that that other parts of Latin America will embrace similar, if not exact. Oh, I spelled divine. Divine. How is it spelled? Divine. Oh, God. All right, I spelled divine wrong in the title, so not only did I spell wars wrong initially, but I also spelled divine. I'll fix it later. Thank you, Shazbot. Shazbot just let me know and supported the show with $10, so that is perfect. Thank you. Let's see. Yeah, I'll do that later. Michael, Joe Biden keeps making these disgusting public threats to Israel in the press. Yeah, I mean, he's all over the place. One day, his administration is supporting, and we're going to help you defend Israel, even if you go to war with Hezbollah. And the next day, they don't know what to do. They're stuck in the middle. They don't want to lose the Jewish vote. They don't want to lose Jewish money. But they also don't want to lose Michigan. And they don't want to lose the Arab vote in Michigan. And they can't make up their mind. And they go back and forth. And it depends which advisor has his ear on that particular day. It's just, yeah, I mean, it's completely inconsistent and pathetic and sad. Plus, his mind is not there. Add that to it. Michael says, is the left propping up Biden a form of elder abuse? No, I don't think so. I think Biden knows what he's doing and wants to be propped up. So he's abusing himself, maybe you could argue, but I don't think it's elder abuse. Apollo Zeus, I'm sorry about yesterday. I apologize to certain others. M. Ribbons. I think I know what he's talking about. But yeah, fine. Equal to reality. If labor is that bad and leaving the UK is the only real option, where would you recommend for a 30-plus single guy who works in tech? I don't know that leaving the UK is the best option. I mean, you're giving up a lot. UK is a great place to live, and the world is filled with labor parties, and it's not like there's anywhere to go that's ideal. As I've often said in terms of moving, it depends on many of your values. It depends on the languages you speak, how comfortable you are in a culture where they speak a different language in your language. It depends on what you value in a lifestyle. It depends on what your profession you're in. I mean, if you can be a digital nomad, right, work from home, you can move anywhere. You can go to a Greek island and work from a Greek island, but that depends. Do you want an island life? Do you want to be in a city? You can go join Nikos in Athens, or Lisbon, or anywhere like that and be a digital nomad, but I don't know if you're a digital nomad. So much of that question really depends on, you know, who you are. Are you looking to date? What are your standards for dating? You want to go to a place where you can date? How about Argentina, where Milei is changing things, but you know, it's a poor place and they speak Spanish. And so there's just so many considerations. I can't give you advice without knowing more. All right. Thank you. Equal to reality. Michael. Did Kennedy handle the Cuban Missile Crisis in an altruistic way? Should we have attacked the nuclear sites in Cuba right away without the blockade? You know, I don't know. I think the blockade probably made sense. It certainly worked. And I think it sent the right message. I think he was relatively tough. I can't remember what Ayn Rand's position was on the Cuban Missile Crisis. I have to look that up. But she was very critical of our attitude towards the Soviet Union more broadly. But I don't know if she was, I can't remember if she was critical of the Cuban Missile Crisis. I think he probably handled it pretty well, and the outcome was pretty good at the end of the day, right? The Soviet Union retracted, right? It folded, and that is about as good an outcome as you can get. All right, Michael says, do you think New York City has so much less crime relative to other major cities is because people can see potentially through these skyscrapers, there's an opportunity there, and you don't need to give up. So let me just say, just because I know people will jump on me, murder rates in New York City are very low as compared to many other cities in the United States. It's one of the safest places from a murder perspective. You probably do get harassed on the subway. Why is that? I don't know. I think in the past, and I think even to this day, policing, there's quite a bit of presence of police in New York. Again, not on the subway, but there is in other places. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, I think there is something to what you're saying in the sense that there's an energy in New York, there's an excitement in New York, there's a potential in New York, there's still ambition in New York. It's an ambitious place. And, I mean, there's a real question of why does crime ebb and flow? I don't think we have a good explanation. One obvious reason is policing. When police disappear from the streets, crime goes up. When the number of police increase in the streets, crime goes down. And there are more police in the streets of America today than ever before. The Biden administration overall has increased the police, and the defund the police movements have all backfired, and those cities have increased the police. So there's something about the ambition and everything, but I don't think it explains it all. We don't really have a good explanation for the ebbs and flows of crime. I mean, and COVID should be studying COVID and how crime exploded during 2020 and 2021, and I think that has a lot to do with BLM and the laxity regarding crime that committed by BLM. And people said, whoa, nobody's arresting those guys, let's go for it. Does that explain murder rates? I don't know. Anyway, it's an interesting question that needs to be studied further. I don't have an explanation. Michael says, all these leftists are rinse and repeat carbon copies of each other. They recite the same shallow talking points their professors give them like little robots. Yeah, I think that's right. Of course, the same thing with supporters of Trump. They're exactly the same. They get their talking points from the right-wing media, and then they just rinse and repeat. And if I criticize Trump, it's rinse and repeat. TDS, TDS, TDS. Never make an argument against me. Just call TDS. So left and right is the same thing. It's tribal. The mentality is a tribal mentality. That is what dominates politics today in America. On both sides of the aisle. Ooh, a lot of super chat questions. All right, Michael. AI is the gold rush. NVIDIA is the middleman selling the shovels and the pickaxes. Yes, it is selling the shovels and the pickaxes. One of my concerns about NVIDIA's valuation, should be incredibly valued, but it's just in the clouds valuation, has to do with competition. Almost everybody is now trying to design AI chips that work well with so everybody, including the big guys. You won't be surprised if Intel and AMD, there's a startup that is going public that is competing with NVIDIA, and then I think Apple designs its own chips. Would it design an AI chip? I think Google has already got an AI chip designed. So it's not clear to me that while it's clear NVIDIA is an innovator and an amazing company and doing well and incredibly profitable and will be profitable for a long time, is it overvalued? It's quite possible, because it doesn't strike me as the market is fully pricing in the impact of competition. This is an area that is not heavily regulated, and therefore there's lots of competition. New competition, startups, and old competition, big tech. Michael, the moral analysis of the Palestinians is very Platonic. The assumption is the Palestinians have no agency and are merely guided and manipulated by Hamas. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It is a denial of any agency, and everything is blamed on the philosopher kings. Everything is blamed on the people who lead them, and they are Hamas. And and then generally, this is an attitude, interestingly enough, that is associated with the Arab world more broadly. They can't help it. This is just how they are. Again, they have no agency. We don't want to morally condemn them. We don't want to morally offend anybody. We don't want to make a moral statement about them. And you see that about the Arab world more broadly, not just about the Palestinians. Michael, again, Dutch has to be the ugliest language. Certainly one of the ugliest. I'm not particularly fond of German for a variety of reasons. But a lot of people like it, but I really don't like it. Michael, again, if Trump hadn't inherited that real estate empire, would he still be a wildly successful marketeer? I mean, he might have been a good marketeer. He wouldn't be as rich as he is today, anywhere near as rich as he is today. Hard to tell how successful he would have been at all. I mean, he may have still be good in marketing, but his whole path would have evolved. His whole life would have evolved and taken a completely different turn. Hard to tell. I don't think he would be anywhere near as successful as he is. Matt, any set plans to come back to the Soho Forum? I only come back to Soho Forum when I'm invited back to Soho Forum. So if you want me back at the Soho Forum, harass Gene Epstein. Gene Epstein basically determines who comes to the Soho Forum and who doesn't. So it's Epstein who makes those decisions. So Gene, harass Gene. Epstein, not Epstein, Epstein. Lucinda, I'm decently wealthy, so while I might have to slow down with donations sometimes, I'll definitely be able to donate 100 plus every now and then. Thank you. I really, really appreciate that. Really appreciate that. Lucindia says, I find German worse as well, but that's probably just because I have to hear it every day. Where are you from? So German's not, you live in Germany, but German's not your native language? Andrew, what's your counter to the claim that atheism necessarily leads to religiosity towards the worship of secular phenomena such as nature? Well, I mean, it's an equivocation over worship and over what secular means. And if religiosity means having principles, then yeah, we're all religious. But that's not what religiosity means. If religiosity means, worship, then maybe we're all religious. But that's not what it means. Religiosity means faith. The essential of religion is faith. And what a secular society should be is a society guided by reason. But it is true, vast portions within secular society are guided by the irrational, and therefore are often embrace secular forms of religion, right? So non-God forms of irrationality and faith. But that's not necessary. They could be guided by reason. And if they're guided by reason, they're not religious. By definition, they're not religious. Nate, I'm currently reading the Romantic Manifesto. Do you think that the objectivist movement could benefit from more objectivist-inspired art of any medium aside from Rand's fiction? Yes, 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 yes. I've said this a million times. We need lots of good art and objectivist-inspired art, but it has to be good. This is the thing. Most objectivist-inspired art is mediocre at best, usually pretty bad. We need good art that reflects the aesthetic values that Ayn Rand manifests in the Romantic Manifesto, or identifies and elaborates on in the Romantic Manifesto. We need great painters and sculptors and poets and novel writers and musicians and the whole gamut. Absolutely. Absolutely. Necessary for cultural change. We will not have cultural change without it. And I've been saying this for decades. Equal to reality, members show starting a business and getting funds. I could do something about that. I'm not sure, could I do a whole show? I could give some advice about that. All right. Capitalist Sky. Let me just copy these over. I need to save these. All right. So Capitalist Sky says a renewal of classical liberalism, a roadmap. Yeah, that's also a good. It's also a good topic. I like these topics. Yeah, you guys should use the Super Chat feature to give me topics for the next. Thank you guys for the next members only show. So those are two good topics. Comedy is a topic. Jennifer says, I don't know. Comedy is a tough one. I might invite on, I forget his name, a guy I know who does comedy, thinks about comedy, has written a book about comedy. That would be interesting, but I don't know that I could do it alone. I don't think I know enough. Jonathan, if it was demonstrably proven to you, like to the Israelites in the Bible, that there was an omnipotent God, wouldn't it be irrational not to listen to him? Also, no coercive threat is made in Exodus 19. No, it's just implied. I mean, everything about God is implied. There's an implied threat. And think about what happens to the worshippers of a golden calf after Moses comes down from the mountain. if it was demonstrably proven to you that there is an omnipotent, but that is an impossibility. It's simply an impossibility. It's a completely arbitrary statement to say that this was demonstrated to the people of Israel. It wasn't. They took it on faith. Now, granted, there were miracles, right? You know, if the Red Sea parts, if we could part the Red Sea and no natural explanation, then aliens or some amazing power, or maybe it's Tucker Carlson's supernatural aliens or something. You have to consider that. But it's a story. It's a story in which this was proven. But then, again, this is the question you have to ask yourself. Why then should you accept commandments? Why wouldn't the Israelites go back to God and say, God, we get it. You're all powerful, all knowing, and all powerful. But you have made us in your image. In other words, we have the capacity to reason. We're not all powerful, but we're powerful. We're not all knowing, but we know. We ate from the fruit of knowledge. And if so, reason with us. Explain this to us. Don't command us. Explain it. Persuade us. Convince us. Argue for it. That would be a God worth having. The God of the Old Testament is a nasty character. He is, jealous, almost envious. Think about the Tower of Babel. He is, doesn't really like human beings. Think about Garden of Eden. He knows everything is predetermined, and yet he lets Cain kill Abel, or is it the other way around? I always forget. He tells Abraham to kill his son. He's a nasty, horrible God. He's angry, jealous. Reason with us. We were created in your image. Like if an alien species came to Earth tomorrow, and they said, look, guys, we know a lot more than you do. We have just traveled from 55,000 light years away, and we made the trip in 3 days. We know a lot more than you. We've experienced a lot more than you. We've done a lot more than you. Here are 10 commandments. You would go, what? Stop. Why? Let's reason. Let's talk about this. We appreciate your increased expertise. We appreciate your increased knowledge. Now, explain it to us. Convince us. And that's what the Israelites should have told God. But they didn't, because the mentality is a tribalistic slave mentality. And God demands that. God wants slaves. That's the other thing. Why does God want this? Why does God, demand that you recognize Jesus before you die and then you go to heaven? But you might have lived a perfect life, a great life, an amazing life, but then forgot to recognize Jesus, forgot to recognize Jesus, but then you go to hell. You suffer for eternity. What kind of a megalomaniac, crazy, nutty, irrational God is it? You gotta challenge every one of these things. It just doesn't make any sense. Urban Porcupine says, I noticed on Real Clear Politics that Ted Cruz race is listed as toss-up, and Texas and Florida are listed as lean Trump. He could lose. As I said, I hope he gets wiped out. But as I said, a loss by a small margin, not very worthwhile. I will be, I don't see it. I don't see. And now Ted Cruz has alienated a lot of Texans. So Ted Cruz could be a toss-up. But I don't believe the presidential race is a toss-up in Texas or in Florida. Right. But it would be great. Let's say Biden wins Texas and wins Florida, wins the toss-up, the so-called toss-up states, and crushes Trump. I mean, that would be huge. That would be a game changer for the right, because they would have to completely regroup and rethink. And that's what we need. Shazbad, divine spelled wrong in title. Yes, thank you. Apollo Zeus says, I'm sorry, Megan. Apollo Zeus apologizing twice in one show for the same thing, I think. Equal to Reality says, member show idea, actually applying objectivism to your life. We see a lot of theory, but how do you apply it practically? I've talked a lot about that in Rules for Life, but certainly worth another shot at it, trying it again. Kabutar, any thoughts on Ross Ulbricht? Ross Ulbricht, I think, was the guy who got sentenced for facilitating the, what do you call it, the dark web or the Silk Road. Silk Road, which is a website that dealt with illegal stuff, drugs, weapons, money laundering, stuff like that. And he got sentenced, I forget how many years in prison. But for a long time in prison, and it's a big libertarian thing to get him pardoned and released from prison. And look, you know, did Ross violate anybody's individual rights? I don't know. I don't think so, but I don't know. But to the extent that he didn't, you know, it's sad that he's in jail. On the other hand, there are many people in jail for not violating people's rights. There are many laws on the books that are unjust. There's no question that Ross violated the law. He violated the law. Nobody's arguing that he didn't violate the law. He did illegal stuff. If you're going to pardon Ross Ulbricht, would you pardon every drug dealer out there? Every drug user out there? Anybody who engages in prostitution or runs a prostitution ring? Are you willing to pardon anybody who's ever been arrested of gambling? And are you going to make gambling legal? I mean, if you answer all those yes, then I say, okay, well, let's pardon Ross Ulbricht as part of a massive pardoning of all these other people. Well, why pardon him and not pardon all these other people? What's so special about him? Because he did it on a bigger scale? Because he's a, quote, libertarian? So, because he's behind, you know, Bitcoin, or he has a Bitcoin account or whatever? I don't know. So, again, I would say pardon him, but pardon everybody at the same level. I don't think he's a hero. There's nothing heroic about breaking the law to trade in drugs or in weapons or stuff like that. It's not heroic. What's the value being achieved? He's in jail. That's the value he achieved. Kabuta says again, Ross Ulbricht, who the libertarians want freed from prison based on similar reasons as Edward Snowden and Julian Assange. Well, again, I think Julian Assange should have rotten in jail. I think Edward Snowden is different than Assange. And I think Ross is different than Edward Snowden and different than Julian Assange. I think he's a completely different case. He's not in prison over leaking information, over trying to change the world. He's in jail for basically breaking the law by trading in illicit materials. Now, you argue they shouldn't be illicit, sure, but then, again, release everybody who's in jail for trading in them. You either have the rule of law, you don't have the rule of law. You don't have special rules for people with Bitcoin or people who call themselves libertarians. You have to be consistent. And it wasn't even, anyway. Matt, New Yorker here. The NYPD is like a small country's army. And they heavily crack down on firearms, which could explain specifically low murder rates. Yeah, I mean, I think in a sense that they're big and they're present and they're around. You go in Manhattan, there's police everywhere. I think that explains it. New York takes law and order seriously unless you're pro-Palestinian. It takes certain crimes seriously. Again, it doesn't take nonviolent crime seriously, or it doesn't take low-grade violence seriously, but certainly it takes the bigger crime issues quite seriously. Thanks, Matt. Lucinda, so German is my native language, but I taught myself English at around 9 years old, and it has been my main and preferred language ever since. That's pretty amazing. Pretty amazing for that to be your main and preferred language. Good for you. Good for you, Lucinda. Matt, is not voting the only rational choice this cycle? Well, I don't want to say it's the only rational choice, because to a large extent, whether it's your rational choice or not is dependent on the context in which you are voting. It depends what values are more important to you. I think not voting is certainly a rational choice. Certainly, I would not vote. I would not vote. But if you think, I don't know, if you are in an industry that Biden is killing with his regulations, I can see you voting for Trump. It's completely rational to vote for Trump, given that you're directly being impacted by something Biden is doing that Trump wouldn't do, and it's big because it's affecting every aspect of your productive ability. So it really depends. It's not, who to vote for is not just straightforward. You have to take into account a lot of different things. It's your assessment of the culture, future of the culture, whether it makes a difference to the future of the culture who you vote for, things like that. Jacob, member show idea, taking a $25 supporter through an issue from an objectivist perspective, how to think about an issue, determining values, etc. Very hard to do without a specific issue in mind. That is, we have to have a concrete, we have to have some issue, right? So I'd be curious about what such an issue would be, and whether you don't think that I, to some extent at least, do that already in the shows on a regular basis. Curious. Let's see. Andrew, as you've said, fear arises absent rationality. Yes. The fearful are drawn to political strongmen. Yes. There's also a lot of rage on the right. Yes. Do you sense it's more fear or anger that typifies the new right? I think it's fear that leads to anger. I think that's the process. I think it's fear that causes them to be angry. And you can understand that, because fear is generated from lack of rationality. Fear and lack of rationality causes you to not understand the world around you and to be fearful of what's going on around you. And that makes you angry. And that makes you want to lash out, because you don't get it. Things are not going your way. You don't understand what's happening in the world. And you're definitely afraid. And now the emotion that comes and is going to dominate is anger. So I think they're all connected. I don't think you can separate. And they happen together in a sense that, I mean, they all basically, the source of it all is lack of rationality. It's the elevation of emotion. That's the source of it all. All right. Cool. So we're entering our third hour. I don't know if we're going to use up the whole hour. Probably not. I'm going to be talking about the virtue of selfishness. Specifically, we're talking about the divine right of stagnation, which is an essay, a 16th essay in the book, written by Nathaniel Branden. The book is, of course, by Ayn Rand, so this is, and is kept in the book by Ayn Rand even after they split. They had their disagreements. But I always go back to it because I see the mentality that it identifies so often in our culture. It's so often out there. And it explains, I think, this idea that people hold a view that is consistent with the divine right of stagnation, a view that is consistent with the right, the demand, not the right, the demand to stagnate, to not change, to not grow. I see it everywhere. I see it on the left and on the right and in the middle. It's everywhere. So I thought we'd talk about it a little bit. So Brandon makes the case in the essay that life, well, this is from Ayn Rand, of course, that life requires motion. Life requires action. It requires the expenditure of energy. Life is self-sustaining action. It's a process. It's a biological process. You must grow to survive. You must progress. Now, for most things like plants, you grow to a point, and that's it. And you stay at that point, you die. The same thing is true of animals. They grow to maturity, I guess, some form of maturity. And then that maturity allows them to continue to survive at the level at which they are, and that's it. Human beings are different. Because we're a conceptual being, there is no it. There's no, we've reached a level and that's it. For human beings, life is constant growth. For human beings, life is constant change. For human beings, life is constant action, constant motion, constant expenditure of energy. And this is biologically true. You know, while we physically grow to a certain limit, our knowledge does not stop. Our capacity to produce does not stop. And we build on knowledge of previous generations. We grow our knowledge exponentially through reading and through experimentation. There really is no end to human knowledge. And whereas for plants, let's say, the attainment of water, you attain water, it's done. You've got water, you're happy. For human beings, every attainment of a new value is something to be happy about, but also a stepping stone, you know, in a sense, a step in the pursuit of the next value. I mean, people complain about this. You see this in psychology all the time, people complaining about the fact that you strive, you achieve something, and then when you achieve it, you now look for the taller mountain to strive and to achieve. You look for something else to achieve. Yes, that's human life. That's the process. That's what life as a human being necessitates. People call that a rat race. It's not a rat race, because a rat race, you're always in the same place. You're not achieving anything. You're not going anywhere. But here you are. What you're achieving is self-esteem. The value of self-esteem, the ultimate, you know, foundational value of self-esteem. Because you're constantly achieving. You're constantly proving to yourself, it's the only person you need to prove anything to, that you can make it in this world, that you can achieve values in the world, that you can attain values, that you can prosper in this world. See, you are constantly achieving more and more and more and more, and there is no end. 1 billion, 2 billion, 3 billion if you're measuring in money. There's no end. Because as soon as you stop achieving, you stop moving, you stop having a purpose, you know, your life stops being as meaningful. You lose your purpose. And as a consequence, you can lose your self-esteem. So notice that rich people, successful rich people, who retire, pick up something else. So Bill Gates starts a big foundation and starts traveling around the world and gives money and investigates and researches and everything. And, because he hasn't stopped, because he's influential, because he keeps talking, because he's still active, so active, he's the source of every conspiracy theory out there, just like he was when he was at Microsoft, or more so now. But he hasn't stopped because he can't stop. Warren Buffett is still working into his 90s. I don't know about Jeff Bezos, how involved he is in his many businesses. But I hope he is, because if he isn't, just hanging around with his, girlfriend, that is not going to sustain him. It's not going to sustain him. One of the great challenges, I think, for many young people in Silicon Valley, the ones who are successful, I don't know, if you take your company public or you sell your company when you're 22 for $100 million, you've got $100 million in the bank, never have to work again in your life, you've got everything you ever wanted. What do you do now? Well, you better figure it out. And if you don't figure it out, you will not have a successful life. You can become an investor with $100 million, as many of them do, and you're still going to work long hours. You can go into politics. You can, you can start another company. $100 million is nothing in a land of gazillionaires. You gotta have a purpose. You gotta have a mission. You gotta have a goal. You've got to set new values. Seek out the next challenge. You got to keep moving. In the essay, life is motion. I'm pretty sure Leonard Peikoff uses exactly that formulation in OPA. Life is motion. Stillness is death. And it's essential for a psychologically healthy human being to stay in motion, to stay a valuer, to stay a seeker, to stay focused on what's next, to keep doing more, right? So people who retire, who don't do that, are very quickly unhappy, angry, miserable, fearful. Was that fearful, Andrew? And resentful. And often, right, they are, they die young, or they're just miserable. So, I think this is a real important principle in an individual's life. If you find yourself resisting change or settling, if you find yourself losing ambition, then it's time to reignite. It's time to figure out how to resurrect it. Ambition is fuel. Ambition is what keeps us going and achieving. And only achieving will result in self-esteem, and only self-esteem will lead you to happiness. So purpose, 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 purpose. Right? And again, it's not limited. There's no number. There's no level of wealth. There's no mountain tall enough. No mountain high enough. There's always something more to achieve. And this is something that, from the beginning of capitalism, has been resented. Both from the conservatives. Nathaniel Bannon in this essay calls them the medievalists, but it's really the conservatives. German conservatives were big writers on this, and the socialists. They all want it to stop. This ambition, this progress, the changes. Can we just take a breather? Can we just slow it down? Can we just go back to the small villages in wonderful nature? You see it in Rousseau. You see it again, in German conservatives in the 19th century. Can we just go backwards? Andrew Sullivan, in my debate with him at Clemson University a few years ago, can we just go back to the days where you could sit on your porch and just on your rocking chair and just not have to worry, think about anything, just embrace, front porch conservatism. Don't change. If I have a steel job, I'll always have a steel job. You want me to retrain? Really? You want me to learn something new? I can't do that. I refuse to do that. That would be cruel. That would be punishing. But that's what you hear from the left and the right. They want stability. They want stagnation. They want, don't give us competition from internationals. Enough, God, hard enough to compete with locals. Now we have to compete with the Chinese or the Vietnamese or the Mexicans or whatever. I can't compete with them. If I compete with them, I'll have to retrain. I'll have to think new thoughts. I'll have to do new things. I'll have to be entrepreneurial. I'll have to, yeah, you will. And that's just unacceptable. And you see it from the union left and from the back porch conservatives on the right. You see the same mentality, a mentality that embraces stillness, that embraces stagnation. And a big part of that is the anti-tech motivates, the anti-tech, anti-big tech. Oh God, a different operating system. Oh God, a different, cable. You remember the European Union passed this regulation that everybody has to use the same cable. Because God forbid we get a better cable, different cable. Can't do that. Has to be the same. A new operating system to download, I can't handle that. Too hard, too difficult, too complicated. And that's stagnation. And it's the philosophy driving, again, much of the modern world. It's the degrowth movement on the left, big movement on the left. We don't want more growth. We don't want more change. We don't want to be challenged. But if you're not challenged, you can't gain self-esteem. You can't live, you can't thrive, you can't be successful. And a big part of the anti-capitalist mentality and the anti-capitalist, motivation is they're afraid of change. And they don't want the effort involved in change. And they're altruists, so it's okay to sacrifice all you people who want change for the sake of the people who are struggling because they can't keep up. So they love stagnation because it means sacrificing the able for the not able, sacrificing the ambitious for the non-ambitious. And that's what altruism is all about, right? I mean, the whole idea that people should keep their jobs, not on the basis of merit, but on the basis of seniority, or as Brandon puts it, senility. No, he doesn't put it. He says seniority. We don't want to hurt the mediocre, to help the able, the ambitious. That is pure altruism. It's how altruism plays into stagnation, fear, and anger. And then what happens, of course, is people expect stagnation. They don't get it because we still live in a relatively, somewhat dynamic environment in which jobs are lost, industries replaced, new technologies introduced, and people are angry and frustrated. They didn't get it. Note, too, that the whole idea of stagnation is driven by what I've called in the past, or what we've talked about in the past, as the Garden of Eden syndrome. Garden of Eden syndrome is this idea of perfection, of ideal, of harmony with nature, of man not doing anything, for manna from heaven, of not having to work, not having to struggle, not having to achieve values. Everything is available to him without any effort. It's the Garden of Eden mentality that is a mentality of stagnation. In Garden of Eden, man and woman stagnate. Adam and Eve stagnate. They don't do anything. They don't produce. They don't create. And religion has placed the Garden of Eden as an ideal. Rousseau places nature and harmony and not progressing and not growing as an ideal. And people buy into it. It's an ideal that people embrace. It's an ideal, again, embraced by the left and the right. In socialist form or religious form, it's embraced. It comes from religion. Its origins of religion. It's the ideal. Isn't Garden of Eden paradise? Paradise. Don't we all strive to live in paradise? Paradise is where you don't have to work. You don't have to achieve. You don't have to strive. You don't have to move. I mean, Marx's utopia is very much like the Garden of Eden. So you see it all over the place. Again, in unions, in anti-trade. Anti-trade has become immigration. Immigration. Why should I compete with these immigrants? Let's assume, for the sake of argument, that immigrants lower wages. So what? Lower wages means lower product prices, means more invested, more money invested, means higher growth and more change. If Americans, natives, can't compete with the immigrants, they need to be retrained. Get new jobs. Figure out how to add more value on the supply chain. You have no right to a job at a particular price, to a particular wage. It's the divine right of stagnation. Again, my job. I'm an American. Who cares? You don't have a right to a job. You don't have a right to a wage. So if it turns out that immigrants lower wages, they lower wages. Okay. Doesn't matter. Nothing wrong with lower wages. Indeed, lower wages are good. Means more profitability or ultimately more investment. One way or another, it leads to more investment. High standard of living for the people buying the goods that are now produced at lower wages. But it's one of these things that is very, very, very difficult to dislodge because it is so anchored in, for example, the mythology of the world in which we live, in the altruism of the world, in the Garden of Eden mythology, but the and of course the altruism, Garden of Eden and altruism. And again, you see it all around us, and don't fall for it. You see it in the debates about AI, taking people's jobs. No, it's just changing people's jobs. But change is good, not bad. And you should embrace that in your own life. And this is the most important thing to get out of this, because politics is secondary. Embrace change. Embrace growth. Embrace ambition. Embrace striving for more, for better, for more. Be greedy. More life, more values, more time, more success, taller mountains, better technology, more interesting job. Don't settle. Don't settle. And the mentality described earlier, I forget who asked it, of we've always done this, this is the way we can continue to do it, that is death. That is a mentality of death. It's anti-life. Get as far away as you can from that mentality. You want to be surrounded with people who want to live, which means to move, which means to challenge themselves. Equal to Reality says, in embracing change, I'm going down to London for an AI course. Great. I mean, many of you should be taking courses in AI. In the name of change, I am creating a ChatGPT clone of Yaron Brook. That'll be change. That'll be interesting. Got to go out there. All right, Jennifer says, Rush song called Ceiling Unlimited. Here's the lyrics. Feeling unlimited, eyes on the prize, changes never end. Ceiling unlimited, world so wide, turn again and again. Nice. I mean, Jennifer has a Neil, it's not Neil Peart lyric for almost anything positive I have to say. That's good. It just shows how good Neil Peart was. All right, lone dissenter, member show idea, argue capitalism against ChatGPT. All right, we can do that. Let's see. I don't know how you argue with ChatGPT. We'll have to figure it out. Fender Harper says, member show idea. Etymology of certain commonly used words. For example, freedom, liberty, rights, and other words commonly used, but held as floating abstractions by most people. ChatGPT could help. So this isn't really about etymology, because I don't think etymology helps you here, really. It's really about, because if it's floating, what you want to do is anchor it. And to anchor it, you need to concretize it. So what it really means to make commonly these concepts real to people, non-floating, would be to reduce them to concretes, to bring them to reality, to show what they mean in reality. Etymology can help, but it is because it can give you an indication of where to look. But at the end of the day, it's about look. It's about pointing. It's about showing it to people where it is and what it's about. All right. Thank you, Fend Harper. It's a good idea. All right. Wes just came in with $50. So we're like $120 short of our 3-hour goal, but we're probably not going 3 hours because I've said what I've got to say. If you guys have more questions, now's the time to ask. Tomorrow there will be a show, so at 2 p.m. East Coast time tomorrow, we're on schedule. There's an AMA on Saturday at 2 p.m. East Coast time. AMA on Saturday. Ask me anything. For those contribute 25 and above, you can come on video and ask me in person. For the rest of you, we'll be right here. And then I probably will do a show just to wrap up June on Sunday. Sunday at either 2 or 3 p.m. East Coast time, we will also do a show, probably a 3, maybe a shorter show, but just as a final for June, given that I didn't do a lot of shows in June, we'll add a show on Sunday. What else? What else do you guys have? No questions, no comments, no stickers. So I will bid you farewell. I will thank you all for all the super chatters, for the fabulous support. Thank you, Wes, and thank you, Lucinda, and who am I missing here? I'm missing some people. Anyway, thank you to all the people I've already thanked. Names I have forgotten. And I will see you all tomorrow. Have a great rest of your day. Bye, everybody.